All right, guys. I got to go into the doctor earlier than I thought because I got to get my knee x-rayed. So I'm pre-recording the video. What's really cool about the recording the videos, you can, hey, wait a second, stop that, control things. I'm just joking with you. Okay. Page 207. We left it at quite a place. The last line of the last page 206. 3 days later, James Hampton was dead. I know it's intense, but let's let Arthur's redemption unfold. There we go. Let's make sure to include Bob Marley with the frog back there. Ow, this worse. I'm getting in their way. Okay. Officer Billy came to Arthur's house on Tuesday afternoon to tell him what had happened. That Mr. Hampton had been taken to the hospital on Monday, and despite everything they did, the doctors were not able to save him. He died early in the morning. The whole time Officer Billy was talking, Arthur kept thinking about what Mr. Hampton had said on Saturday. If something happens to me... Wow, so he told him that on Saturday, and 3 days later, right, 3 days later, that's what she said, okay. He never imagined those words would come true so soon, not in a million years. Maybe Mr. Hampton had seemed more tired than unusual on Saturday and said some odd things, but they'd made a bunch of stars and Mr. Hampton had started to design a new table. It wasn't possible that he was dead. My hair. Thank you. When Arthur didn't say anything, Officer Billy patted his shoulder awkwardly and said that if he needed to talk about his feelings, he could call any time. I realize this is tough news to hear. Even though he was afraid to ask, Arthur knew he had to find out about the garage and Mr. Hampton's project. He kind of put me in charge of some things in his garage, he managed to say with an almost steady voice before the officer left. What do you think is going to happen with everything? Of course, Officer Billy didn't have any idea what he was talking about. Don't worry about your probation. We can decide all of that later. I'll be back in touch in a week or so. Call me if you need anything. And then she was gone. Arthur waited until the next day at lunch to tell Squeak what happened. I'm awfully sorry, Squeak said. I liked Mr. Hampton a lot, too. I know. Thanks. Arthur would answer each time and then try to change the subject to homework or question or something stupid like that. Arthur's family wouldn't leave him alone after they heard the news. Officer Billy had called Arthur's mom at work on Tuesday to tell her. She came home early, a rare occurrence. I can't believe all this happened so suddenly. You just saw Mr. Hampton on Saturday, didn't you? Arthur's mom said give him a hug when she got home, and it didn't help much. On Friday, Roger invited him to a Washington Senators basketball game to take his mind off of things. You know, the boyfriend, Roger. When Arthur turned him down, he suggested bowling and a movie. I really don't want to do anything, no matter what it is. Thanks. Barbara left a bunch of rainbow drawings on his bed so you can remember your friend. Which was very sweet of her, Arthur thought, even if the silver temperature knob from the toaster almost made him bust up and start crying. Pretty intense, huh? The silver knob almost made him bust up and cry. You want to start talking about the redemption of objects. A silver knob on a toaster meant that much to Arthur. On Saturday, Arthur went to go see Groovy Jim. He didn't really want to go, but he wasn't sure if Groovy Jim had heard about Mr. Hampton. He wanted to check what was happening with the garage. So she shouldn't worry. He told his mom he was going to the library to look up something for his school project. What project? Arthur scrambled to come up with something. Oh, parts of the cell. His mom didn't look as if she believed him, but she let him go anyway. Hey, kiddo, you're here early, Groovy Jim said cheerfully. He was eating a bowl of popcorn, even though it was only 10 o'clock in the morning. What's up? Go. Sorry. Right then, Arthur knew the guy hadn't heard. Arthur tugged the front of his hair nervously. Now that he was standing there, he didn't want to be the one to tell Groovy Jim the news. He wasn't even sure how to start. He hated using the word died or passed away. It's about Mr. Hampton. Groovy Jim looked at Arthur, his face suddenly serious. What's wrong? Has something happened to him? When Arthur didn't answer him right away, he said, Geez, oh, Pete, he's gone, isn't he? Yes, Arthur mumbled. Standing up, Groovy Jim slowly walked to the front window of his shop. He stood there for a few minutes, shaking his head and rubbing his eyes. When did it happen? Tuesday morning. Man, I can't believe it, he said, staring out the window. I just can't believe it. I'd seen Hampton around this week, but I didn't think anything was wrong. That crazy old man was such a good guy. He was a real good guy. Arthur had no idea why he chose this moment to admit what he'd done to Mr. Hampton, but the confession came out. You know, I was the kid who hit him last fall. That's why I was working for him. Groovy Jim's reaction took him by surprise. Don't worry, kiddo. I know who you were the minute you walked into my shop. Back in December, I was in court the day you were sentenced. I drove Mr. Hampton to court. Told him I'd be there to support him. Arthur stared at Groovy Jim in absolute disbelief. He had been in court the day he was sentenced. He knew the whole story? Why didn't you ever tell me that? Groovy Jim shrugged. You didn't say anything to me. Did you? We all have our secrets sometimes, don't we? Arthur admitted this was true. There was a lot he had kept from Groovy Jim. Groovy Jim went back to his chair behind the counter and sat down, being all shaken up by the news. Finally said, well, thanks for coming here to tell me about Hampton, kiddo. I know it wasn't an easy thing to do. Arthur reached into his pocket for the piece of paper he had brought along. I have something else to ask you, he glanced in the direction of the garage. I promised Mr. Hampton I wouldn't let anything happen to his artwork, so I was wondering if you could tell me if someone comes to move it or something, he said, holding out the unfolded paper. I wrote my phone number down, right here for you. Arthur shook his head. Nobody knows what's happening to his stuff, do they? No, nobody knows. He tried asking Officer Billy. He told Groovy Jim the day before he called her again to tell her that Mr. Hampton had left some very important projects in his garage and was worried about what would happen to them. But she insisted there wasn't much she could do unless Mr. Hampton wrote his wishes down. These things are complicated, she said. So, are there any plans for a funeral or a memorial? Groovy Jim asked. Arthur said he had heard that there were some relatives in South Carolina, where Mr. Hampton was from, and he might be buried there. But that was all he knew. Too bad he didn't have family here. Yeah. There was another long silence. So you'll let me know if anything happens, right? Groovy Jim nodded. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on things. The project meant a lot to Hampton. I know you worked hard on it, too. Arthur watched nervously as Groovy Jim shoved the folded piece of paper under his cash register drawer. Would he remember where he put the number? Would he watch the garage like he said? Arthur knew he couldn't be there 24 hours a day. He couldn't stand guard over the artwork. Trust didn't come easy to him, but he had to trust Groovy Jim. That's what he had to do. A few days later, Groovy Jim kept his promise. Someone called for you, Arthur's sister announced when she came shooting from the baskets outside. She was mixing a picture of Tang in the kitchen. Tang is 60s food. Although he'd only been outside a short time, she already managed to spill powder and ice cubes everywhere. Who was it? I think he said his name was Gloomy Jim. You mean Groovy Jim? I guess. He said you needed to come to the garage right away because something is happening. Barbara put her hands on her hips, squinting suspiciously at her. Who's Gloomy Jim and what garage is he talking about? I'll tell you later. After making his sister promise she'd stay inside, he took off running, hoping he wasn't too late. Chapter 43, page 215. Everything had been moved. Arthur's heart nearly stopped when he reached the gravel alley and they saw what was happening. Mr. Hampton had always said, don't move anything. Everything in creation had its place. Everything had been perfectly balanced. But Arthur could see that the big corrugated metal door at the front of the garage was pushed up. Cardboard boxes of unused foil and glass bottles sat outside. The pieces of Mr. Hampton's masterpiece had moved to the sides of the garage. Stop! Arthur tore down the alleyway, his arms flailing wildly. What are you doing? He said with a shriek. Can't you see this is someone's work of art? That's heaven. Everything in there is supposed to be heaven. Groovy Jim stood closer to Arthur. Okay, kiddo, you gotta calm down. I know you're upset about the stuff being moved. It wasn't anybody's fault. I got here a few minutes ago myself. Calm down a little and let's try to work this out. I don't want to calm down, said Arthur. You were supposed to watch the garage. All right, well, let's talk things over with this guy. I'm sure we can figure something out. Arthur, this is Tony. He's the landlord of the garage. Hey, kid. The landlord looked at Arthur uneasy. I didn't mean to upset you. I had no clue that the things in the garage, what they were. I just came to clean up the place and get it ready for renting it out. I didn't know it was some guy's stuff. No, it's the third throne of heaven. The throne of third heaven, excuse me. Not some guy's stuff. The landlord looked like a gangster. Greased back dark hair, thick gold chain around his neck, fake smile. Arthur didn't believe a word he was saying. Arthur worked on the project with the man who died, Groovy Jim explained. He's kind of second in charge with creating this masterpiece. The landlord looked at the two of them like they were lunatics. This thing is made out of junk, right? He said, glancing back at the pieces. First off, it's not junk. It started off on an island in World War II with things from the island. It started with death and war. His voice grew louder, and you could see he was losing it. He had to get a grip. He was the director of special projects for the state of eternity. Mr. Hampton was counting on him. He couldn't fall apart. Look, the landlord said, I don't know what the hell the old guy was building in here. You say it's some masterpiece, right? I have no way to say what's art and what's not. It looks like junk to me, but I'm no judge. You pay the rent, I don't care what you do. You can build whatever kind of stuff you want. The throne of third heaven. Not stuff. How much? Asked Groovy Jim. Hampton paid $50 a month. April and May weren't paid up, so I need $100 for back rent. After that, it's $50 a month. Arthur's heart sank. $100. And then $50 a month after that. Please remember it's 1963, and $100 means something different. Where would he get that kind of cash? If I gave you $50 right now, Groovy Jim asked, could you give us a week or two to figure out what to do next, given the circumstances and all? Hey, I'm a reasonable guy. For a gangster, Arthur thought. Feeling guilty that he didn't have $1 to contribute, Arthur watched as Groovy Jim emptied all the cash from his wallet and gave it to the guy. Then he had to go clean out the cash register in his shop and the spare change on the ground to finally make it to $50. Take till the end of May to make up your minds, he said, and he shoved a handful of bills and coins in his pants pocket. The end of May was less than 3 weeks away. I'm sorry for messing up the guy's work. I'm just a regular guy who rents out buildings. I don't know about art and culture, okay? Arthur almost believed the guy was sorry. He would have believed it for sure if he hadn't taken Groovy Jim's money. You'll leave everything alone until the end of the May. You won't come back? Not unless you burn the place down, kid, okay? Arthur didn't even crack a smile. After the landlord left in his rattling truck, Arthur turned to Groovy Jim. He took all your money. Arthur felt sick. Groovy Jim shook his head and laughed. No big deal. It's not the first time someone's taken all my money. Probably won't be the last time either. Let's get heaven put back together, okay? They started rebuilding Mr. Hampton's creation as carefully as they could. The gold throne chair with the shimmering wings was first. Around it they arranged the dozens of intricate tables and pedestals and pillars. Arthur remembered where a lot of the pieces went. He thought Squeak, being Squeak, would probably remember even more. Luckily, a lot of the bigger pieces had wheels on them, which was something he had never actually even noticed before. Heaven on wheels, Arthur thought. His dad would have loved that idea. All right. Well, it's only 14 minutes of reading, but we're going to pause there. So after you hear this today, you are to do your ST fraction minutes and review the questions in the unit test of Unit 1, both 4th and 5th grade, for the unit test Google Forms quiz on Monday. Try out some of the problems and see what you know and what you don't know. And of course, I will be chill, forgiving. If there's parts you miss, that's what we need to work on and learn, and you'll get chances to earn all the points. Okay? And you can take this more than once. I'll set it that way. All right, my amazing people. Thank you for being understanding with my doctor's appointment, and I'll be seeing you Monday morning.